Welcome to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams, the Center for Accounting Transformation, and CPA Trendlines. On this podcast, we share ideas and hear from guests about how they find, retain, develop, and advance women and other underrepresented groups in their accounting firms. Now, on to our guest. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Move Like This. Today, I am very much looking forward to talking to Rob Brown. He is the co-founder of Accounting Influencers. He is the host of his own podcast. He is a coach, an instructor, and a guy pretty much with his finger on the pulse of what's going on with the profession. So, Rob, thank you for being here today.
Bonnie, really appreciate that. That's a lovely introduction. Finger on the pulse of the profession. First thing I got to say, I'm really glad you called it a profession. How many people call it an accounting industry? And we're trying to elevate accounting, aren't we? But
Mm-hmm.
industry, no disrespect, it puts it in blue collar range for me. But don't accountants, CPAs work hard for their qualifications? Aren't they on par with the legal profession, maybe the medical profession? So let's call it how it is. I like that.
Yes, I have I've done that for a long time, and part of it is I had a couple of accountants that were like, we're trying to change how we describe it. I'm like, well, let me be a part of that change. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is a term that I agree with you. I think it better describes what we're talking about and the people within it.
Yeah.
So
And you
uh,
mentioned the Accounting Influencers Roundtable. I founded that a few years ago, and I'm moving that onto other hands now. And my brand going forward is going to be Accounting Voices. That's my podcast, and I do these speed networking sessions every 2 or 3 months, mostly for people in North America, and we just bring the profession together. Professionals, bookkeepers, leaders, coaches, consultants, trainers, vendors, fractionals, CFOs, finance people in the accounting space to say what is happening in this world. So you're right, you do get your finger on the pulse of what's important, what's being talked about, how people are feeling about this. And we're hopefully going to touch on a few of the issues, challenges, opportunities in this interview.
that is my goal as well. So
Where do you want to start then?
well, let's just say, as somebody that is working with accounting firms around the world, I would love to get your quick take on what cultural or workplace trends that you're seeing, that US, maybe these are things that you're seeing in other places that US firms should be paying more attention to, if they want to stay competitive and continue to grow.
Yeah, well, I am based in the UK. I'm in Nottingham, home of Robin Hood, but most of my audience is in North America, in the US and Canada. And I host a couple of other podcasts there. So it is a world that I know well. And I've been to 48 of your 50 states. So which two do you think I haven't been to? Just as a trivia question, Bonnie.
Well, I've been to all but eight, so you've got me beat.
Wow. Okay.
But I would say Idaho and Montana.
You're wrong on both counts. It's the two offshore ones. I haven't been to Alaska and I haven't been to Hawaii. But
Yeah.
actually, I learned recently that not only do 80% of Americans have only been to 7 states or less, but the final state for most Americans that conquer all 50 is North Dakota. So apparently, there's not a lot going on at Fargo. They even have in the visitor center, save the best for last, and you can get your photograph taken because they know they are the last state. But anyway, I feel very much Americanified. My daughter is studying over there in North Carolina. So you're asking about the global trends, and we can call them global because we're getting the same thing everywhere. I see three things going on. The first is dare we say radical flexibility, the drive for 4 day weeks, the drive for increased employer brand and redefining productivity, moving away from the billable hour slightly. But are you going to make this a great place to work for me? Does it align with my values? That giving me some flexibility, some autonomy, some say in what's going on, my hands on the steering wheel of my own career. How are you going to develop me and mentor me? I am qualified. I will do what you need me to do, but I'm not just after money. So there's a lot of stuff going on there in how firms are being more appealing to what is a very competitive talent market. So I'm sure you've seen that
Mhm.
too.
Oh yeah.
So let's hit flexibility. Then I want to align that specifically to values and purpose over pay. 70% of Gen Zs who are forming the brunt of the accounting profession right now, we know the baby boomers are all retiring out. 70% of Gen Zs are choosing values over salary. So we then get to what is a purpose-led firm? How are they getting employer advantage in the talent market? So there's a lot of unattractive things about firms. They all say the same things. They have the same websites. They make the same promises. They offer the same
Great.
packages and the same benefits. And there's very little to choose between them. So the firms that have a story to tell, that can get people buying into the narrative of that story, come and join us on our journey. I'm seeing that change in the workplace, that they are much more competitive in the talent market. So
Mhm.
beyond
Yeah.
the flexibility and the career options and everything else, what are you trying to achieve? And I don't know how you feel about private equity. It can be a force for good or evil, but the firms that are holding on to independence are the ones that tend to have the strongest stories
Hmm.
because they've got a culture, they've got a brand, they've got a story, they've got a heritage, they've got an origin, they've got something that they're really holding on to, something that's worth keeping. They're not selling out to the dollar, as it were. So they tend to have a little more going for them. And so do the smaller firms that are in a niche or owning a particular sector or operating in a particular way. Those boutique firms, they are attracting good people because people feel like they can make a difference there. They can buy into something. So that would be the second thing. And then probably I'd add to that the globalization of talent now, borderless workforces, different leadership models. Hybrid and remote means your people don't have to live in the same zip code. We've been seeing that for a while, but it's becoming more and more acceptable now that outsourcing is not a problem. It's well respected now, it's well accepted now. You can get people hired from anywhere. If you can find a way to integrate them and train them and make them feel like they belong and engage them, then you can get talent from anywhere. So there's three good ones to start with.
I agree with you, and they're all people focused too.
Isn't
Um,
that funny? Yes.
Imagine that. Yeah, I had a conversation yesterday with somebody else on a podcast episode, and she's like, really, what we're boil it down to, the accounting profession is humans helping humans.
Yeah.
So, we really those firms that are focused on their people, I think things like revenue and growth and all the other things that we kind of talk about will follow naturally.
Mm.
Um,
Are you
so.
seeing as I am, Bonnie, that there's perhaps a little shift in neurodiversity too, and that firms are willing to hire non-accountants now and go outside the typical accounting skill set for different kinds of people? It might be neurodiversity, it might be different qualifications. If they're not finding enough qualified CPAs, then they're going to professionals that have different backgrounds, different, well, I say neurodiversity. I know you're big on diversity in all its many manifestations. So, but yeah, there's that willingness to embrace the non-white male professional that it's traditionally been. Have you heard that phrase, stale, male, and pale? Is the makeup of most accounting firms, but we've got to go beyond that if we're going to move forward.
Well, and that also brings up something completely different in that when we talk about diversity, and of course I do live in that space,
You do.
um, it is, I think a lot of times people jump immediately to the idea of race and probably secondarily gender, but there are so many different things that create diverse individuals, and neurodiversity is one of them. And,
Mm,
I also think it's important a lot of times when we look at that, like just different backgrounds, people that have grown up in different environments and not necessarily upper middle class, comfortable places, because people with that sort of background or history bring something different to the table. And I think
yeah.
that's, diversity, and we'll talk about this a little bit, but a lot of times diversity is much more than what we immediately jump to, and there's a lot of value in kind of casting that wider net and being open
Mm.
to individuals, regardless of, what it is that where they're from or what they look like.
There's a great book by Matthew Syed called Rebels, and in it he tells the story about why 9/11 happened. And why were the signs not seen? Why didn't people see this coming? And in the analysis of it all the people working for the Secret Service and the intelligence agencies and the CIA and all that, they were all too similar. They're
Hmm.
all white male Harvard grads. They were all thinking in the same way. They were all approaching the problem in the same way. There wasn't enough neurodiversity in the room and cultural diversity and all the other kinds of diversities you can think of. So they all saw it in the same way and they all missed so many different things that other people would have seen. So it's a fascinating look at where that went wrong for the American people. But anyway, let's get back on track. We've hit some of the problems with the talent shortage and what firms are doing to equalize things. So maybe how do you feel about employer brand as a topic?
Yes, I would
Why is your
love to
firm a great
hear.
place to work? Do you like talking about that?
Yeah, I mean, I love that. The idea you do talk a lot about kind of reputation and employer brand, right? And I think it's not necessarily my other hat is marketing, so I kind of live in
Right.
this space quite a bit,
Sure.
and it isn't something that firms think about as much, I think, as they should. They tend to equate brand with what their logo looks like, and it is so much more than that. So I'd love your thought on how a strong employer brand can, help firms attract that talent, as you just mentioned before, but also help them grow and with clients, referral partners, and all the different ways that firms are looking to grow.
Yeah. Well, there are three brands for me in an accounting firm. The first is the corporate brand, which is how do we present ourselves as a firm, as a company, and that reaches out to clients and potential clients. And this is what it's like working with us. This is how we serve you. These are our areas of expertise. And websites are conflicting for accounting firms in that they're trying to appease different audiences because, yes, you've got to look after your clients and show that you've got expertise in your domain. But the second kind of brand is the employer brand, which is what messages do you give to your employees and potential employees? So people will go to your website. They're not so much interested in your areas of expertise or how long you've been in business. They're interested in different things, a little bit more along the lines of your values and what it's like working there and the about you page and other people like me represented there and other people I feel I could get along with and will I be looked after. So that's your employer brand and it speaks to are we a great place to work? Are we a good company to work for? Not are we good professional advisors to work with and handle your accounts?
Hmm.
So there's different things going on there. So that's the second brand is the employer brand. The third brand is the personal brand. So people are starting to trust personal brands more than corporate brands and they will follow people. They will, if you wanted if you wanted to choose a piece of tech, Bonnie, you wouldn't go online. You would go to your friends. You would go to your peers and you say, what are you using for this? You want that peer over the garden wall that look in someone else's bait box or medicine cabinet and saying, how are you working this problem out? And you go to your peers and we go to people for recommendations and referrals and introductions. So I'm interested often in how the firm is represented with its people, personal brands. What are they saying about the firm? How are they appearing externally? Not necessarily as thought leaders and putting loads of things out there, but I want to know that people have an opinion on things and they're proud of where they work and they are the biggest ambassadors of the firm. And that's why it ties back to employer branding that if you love working somewhere, I'm interested in why you've stayed. I
Hmm.
want to know why you joined. I want to know why you've resisted the temptation from LinkedIn recruiters every week to look at other job opportunities and what's made it 10, 20 years in the making for you at that firm. Those stories don't get told. They're not on the websites. And the furthest people go with employer brand is often these are our people. This is Bonnie. she's in our tax department. She does CrossFit and cross stitch on the weekends, and she's married with two kids, and she graduated from Columbia University. And great. There's a nice picture of Bonnie smiling, and there's a LinkedIn profile, but there's no video there. This is the missing element here. I want a video of Bonnie talking about this is me, this is why I love it here. These are my areas of expertise. These are the kind of clients I work with. We're in a video generation. So you're getting me on a pet subject, but employer brand is not a marketing slogan. It's the answer to the question, is this firm a great place to work?
Mhm. And every firm is not necessarily going to be a great place to work for every person.
True.
And I think that too is what people are looking for. Like, is this the kind of place I want to be? The place I want to work might be very different than the place you want to work, right? So, it's not just attracting everybody, it's attracting the right kind of person that is going to help your firm become what it has the potential to be.
Mm.
And I think putting that out there a lot of times helps streamline the process. I also agree. I love video, and I don't feel like I think a lot of times firms don't want to do video because they're like, oh, it's so expensive and it's got to be so professional, and it doesn't,
No.
it's uh, just talk about what it is that you like about working there. And it might be something, it probably isn't that you love tax or you love
No.
audit,
No.
it is, these are the people I feel like I can trust, or I have an opportunity to grow and that's important to me, or, whatever that might be. I agree. I think that is very important and
And
missing.
in the talent market that we're in, aren't your own people the best ambassadors of your brand? And we're hearing more and more about employees becoming recruiters. So everyone in the firm can bring a new person into the firm. So they become your alumni, your people that get your firm. They've been in it. They know what the experience is like. They know what it means to live and breathe that firm. Everybody's got a network. The network of the individuals in any firm is bigger than the corporate network of the firm's brand itself. The followers of a LinkedIn
Exponentially.
company page are not as big as the individual follower network of all the people there. So leveraging that in being an ambassador of the brand, it's important. I don't know if firms really encourage their people to be out there talking about the firm, opening doors for the firm. Maybe that's not popular these days, but goodness me, even the most introverted person in the world is going to influence 10,000 people in their lifetime. And accountants as a breed tend to be a little bit more introverted, don't they? But still, we can all tell a story. We can all share an anecdote. We can all give an example of why we love what we do, whether that's accounting as a profession or our firm as a place to work. So we're all a walking billboard in one way or another, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And from a technical point of view, when you're talking about, you just mentioned asking why people stay. Why are
Yes.
they there? Why do they stay? You hear so much about firms doing exit interviews when somebody leaves, but you don't hear them doing stay interviews. And I think that is one of the things that has so much opportunity for, like, let's figure out what it is we're doing right with the people that
Mm,
stay so we can build on that and we can communicate that. That can become part of our employer brand. And that's one of the things that we recommend often in like accounting move project reports is let's do some stay interviews
mm.
and see why people are staying and what is important to them so we can build on that and maybe not focus on some things that we have been focusing on.
I love that. The best employer brands have stories told with real people with names and faces.
Hmm.
And the firms that hide behind the corporate logos and the website, they often get ignored. And we can see the leaders stepping up through their personal brand and interviews and putting stuff out there. They are visible, they are vocal, they become an attraction to a firm because personality, it attracts talent, it attracts clients. It's real people with real stories. That's why we do accounting voices and bring people together in these speed networking sessions just to say, hey, come and connect, come and talk and get used to being on camera and get used to these rooms like this. nobody likes the word networking, but if we call it relationship building or connecting, we've all got some great stuff to share. So that's my take on employer brand. If I was giving it a school report for accounting firms, I'd say it's a C. In a couple of firms, it might get a B or a B plus or a 3 GPA, 3.0 GPA, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not A at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I kind of, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how we've both seen DEI programs or whatever we're calling it today.
What do
And
we call it today, Bonnie? You should know this.
we're calling it a whole bunch of things. So it's amazing. There's an annual conference that used to be called DEI that was Opportunity and Access this year is what it was
Okay.
rebranded as. And I'm like, okay,
I had DEI branded to DEIJ, which was diversity, equity, inclusion, justice.
I've seen
So,
that. I've actually seen
yeah.
the letters rearranged to form the word Jedi.
Oh, yeah. I'd not come across that one, but yeah, it makes sense. But listen, let's be honest, the whole DEI movement has lost ground in the last year. We don't necessarily need to blame Trump for that, but he didn't help the DEI movement. But
Mm.
scaling back DEI, some people are saying it's something that should have been done long ago because it's transformed policy too much. Other people are saying it's a disaster in the making. Where do you sit on that?
I think those of us that are in this space did a poor job of, well, let's go back to brand, to branding it or explaining what it really is. And therefore, it was easy for opponents to come in and rebrand it as something negative. And, I think there was an assumption out there that people wanted to create inclusive spaces and that they understood what that meant. And that wasn't necessarily the case. So I do, and I've talked about this before, I take some of that. I think we, as those in that space, need to take some of that blame and do a better job of explaining what it is. Now, when you talk about DEI without using the phrase and creating better workplaces where people feel like they can belong, and we go into the whole idea of access and opportunity and things like that,
Yeah.
people are generally very positive about it and very into it. So, I think that's where I fall on that. And younger generations really do see this as important. And when you're talking about Gen Z in particular, and more jobs than there are people, they do have a tendency to look at like the partnership group and say, is there anybody in there that looks like me that, do I have an opportunity to get there, or am I going to wind up getting to a certain point and hitting a ceiling?
Yeah.
So these are still things that are important. We just have to figure out, I think, in some ways, how to communicate it better. But I'd love to hear what you think.
I interviewed a lovely guy a few years ago called Herschel Frierson. He's a partner at Crow. And at the time, he was the chairman of the National Association of Black Accountants.
Mhm.
And I asked him, what was life growing up for you as you entered the profession? And he said the phrase you just said, there was nobody like me. I couldn't see anybody like me down the road or up there in the upper echelons. I want to share with you, if I can, some stats. This was from Inside Public Accounting.
Mm.
Chelsea Summers and her team there, they put out an amazing 2025 human resources report. You can get it on their website. And they asked about talent. They 300 and how many firms? 326 firms participated. And they asked about racial and ethnic diversity. As you pointed out earlier, there are many different kinds of diversity, but we were talking about whether we were seeing progress. So women make up the majority of staff. 57% of people in firms are women, but at partner level, it's only 25%. So they are underrepresented at the partner level. So there's that gender. 79% of staff in US accounting firms identified as white, 3% identified as black, 5% as Hispanic, and 6% as Asian. And those numbers have been pretty stagnant
Mhm.
over the years. So despite the diversity movement that may have been halted in its tracks when a lot were sunsetted and it might have been just getting some momentum. We've not really moved the dial much.
And that is definitely part of the problem, and that's where, Move spends most of their time, particularly around gender. And it's it doesn't reflect the greater population of the US either. I mean, if you think about it, we are not that far, most likely in our lifetime. We're gonna hit a tipping point where there is no racial majority, right?
Mm,
And so our business owners, if we stick to talking about race, we have our ideal clients are not all white anymore either.
true that.
So how is, and I'm not saying that it needs to be a perfect, like if the population is 20% black, then our accounting firm needs to be 20% black. There's no way that kind of thing is going to ever happen. But we
No.
do, at this point, it looks like there is bias built into the system because that number is not changing while the population is.
I don't know what to do about that. That's a fair point. It's not the only thing that needs fixing in accounting, but it's certainly one of the things. And let's be honest, it's not just accounting that has this problem. There are other sectors that are exhibiting this as well, and there's just a lack of inclusivity and a lot of bias is going on. So we're not alone in that regard, but this is our house. We've got to put it in order. We've got to do what we can. We are ambassadors of the brand of accounting. We want it to be better than it is. We know it's a great profession. We want to shine a light on it. But sometimes there are things that you can't shine a light on because it's not a good look.
Yeah.
It's not good optics, as the politicians would say. But it's a work in progress, Bonnie, isn't it? Along with a few other areas.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one thing I hate to see, progress that has been made getting pulled back.
Hmm.
Because firms are concerned. I've had conversations with a number, I'm talking to firms all the time. And, in particular, I had one with a firm that will remain unnamed, about participating in the accounting move project. And they told me, they're like, you know what? We are concerned about showing up on a best CPA firms for women list because that puts us in the crosshairs.
Wow.
And there are people that are looking out for anything that smacks of DEI in any way. And we are just trying to fly below the radar because we have a good deal of federal work. Um,
Yeah.
and that was a little heartbreaking to me, and that was like, wow, we're trying to just stay status quo when you and I have just talked now about the fact that kind of those firms that are trying to be generic are not the ones that are going to attract the talent they need.
I tell you what I am pleased by, Bonnie, is there are more strong female voices in accounting now than ever before. I just had a call with Carla McCall earlier today, past chair of the AICPA, Lexi Kessler, Sue Coffey, other great, strong female voices. A lot of coaches, consultants, trainers out there that are very influential and speaking up well, not necessarily for women, but as a woman and a professional in this career choice. So all of us need to be telling better stories about accounting, but the more people can see people like them in positions of responsibility and authority, the better it's going to be for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have two more questions I want to talk to you about. So,
Let's have at it.
the first is, and I love this, you emphasize trust as a critical leadership quality, in your writing and your speaking. And in an era when there's tons of rapid change, and we can talk about AI and PE and all the things that are making things change. What role do you think transparency plays in building trust with employees and clients, and how can firms be more transparent?
That's a very complex question.
It,
Right out of the gate, I'm not the only person that advocates that trust
no.
is the leadership currency of our time. It's not no secret. But if you ask 100 different people what trust is, you'll get 110 different answers. And that's part of the problem. It's a very complex term. And look at, you mentioned AI. We're in a hybrid world, political, social divides. All of this creates uncertainty. Uncertainty is the opposite of faith. Faith is being sure, isn't it? And trust is being sure. And uncertainty. Have you heard of the term VUCA?
No.
It came out during the pandemic. VUCA. It stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And
Sounds horrible.
the pandemic 10x that as well, because volatility was 10x during the pandemic. Uncertainty, people went from making 2, 3, 5 year plans to 90-day plans and wondering if best practice today was best practice tomorrow.
Hmm.
So we had that complexity of so many different factors bumping into other factors and that ambiguity of, well, what does really that mean? In fact, the whole DEI movement has had that ambiguity problem. People haven't truly explained it and understood it, as you said. But when we get back to trust, VUCA is the enemy of trust.
Yeah.
Uncertainty is the enemy of trust. And leaders who tell the truth, they have to be uncomfortable. They have to be transparent. They have to be vulnerable. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. And we're going to try and figure it out together. That honesty comes at a cost that very few leaders are willing to pay. It's ego, personal credibility at stake. But in times of VUCA, turbulent times, uncertain times, when it's dark and the way forward is not clear, people will trust people more than they follow job titles and more than they follow corporate brands. So transparency, definitely. Digital transparency has become a new phrase as well because employees see everything. Do you remember back in the day, if you were a whistleblower and you knew something was going on in your firm, you couldn't put that out there. You wouldn't know who to talk to. Would you go to your union rep or whoever? But these days, if you're not happy where you are, that can be out on social media and around the world in seconds. So
Mhm.
this digital transparency, the employees see everything. It's hard to keep secrets in the boardroom. It's hard to keep secrets in government. There's leaks everywhere, social posts. You can't hide. And leaders have got to assume that all of their actions are visible. So that's not a bad thing in a way, because it is creating the transparency that allows us to be informed. But the downside to that is fake news, all the wrong signals, all the wrong media coming out. If you can share anything on social, then a lot of it might not be true. And how do we know what to believe? All these biases that you spoke of earlier. So it all points to this idea that if you are known for being truthful and being honest, even the expense of your own reputation, not quite to the point of career suicide, you wouldn't reveal that much, but people follow leaders they trust. They don't follow titles. And if you would have influence and authority and are saying things and any kind of following, or you would want to move the dial or make the world a better place, then yeah, trust. It's a great currency. It's difficult. It's biblical even, but it isn't built in the boardrooms, is it? It's built in the open. People that share the thing. And I love accountants that are willing to become thought leaders and put stuff out there. I spoke today with the top 10 firm here in the UK. He's head of the corporate finance team. He's got 12 people under him. And he talked about his ADHD. And he's 40 years old. He's recently been diagnosed as an adult. He said, I didn't have it when I was younger because I swam 13 sessions a week and all of my ADHD came out in the activity. But he said, I'm just wondering now if I should put it out there and start sharing that I've been diagnosed with ADHD. And I said, you know what? Do it because it's you. It's part of who you are. And a lot of people
Mhm.
will empathize with your journey because you've been transparent. And we're all contending with something, aren't we, Bonnie?
Oh,
You've
yeah.
been on a journey, and the last couple of years with you and your health and everything else. I've had a stroke. I'm on the record. I don't drive. I'm not allowed to drive. I take medication for epilepsy. I'm blessed that I can still do a lot of what I used to do, but
Mhm.
we've all got shit going on.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect, and everyone's contending with something. And the degree to which you can open up a little bit about that and show your humanity, I feel that might be a bit of a superpower.
I agree. And I think that willingness to be vulnerable and to share things that might, people may judge you for.
Oh yeah, for
But
sure
just
they will.
oh,
Guaranteed. You've
but
been judged, right?
oh yeah, I mean, I think we all have on many levels, but I think it also shows that you're human, and that is particularly important to younger generations.
Yeah.
Though it's not just them that care about it. I will feel a connection to somebody. I think we all do when there's something that we have in common, or maybe just the idea that, like you said, we've all got our own shit that we deal with, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's not necessarily something that a lot of people feel comfortable doing,
No.
but I think it can make a real difference in how you connect to people and how you're viewed.
My daughter recently, we're all committed Christians here. My daughter's studying in ECU, East Carolina University in North Carolina, and she's part of a church there. She's 21 years old, and she shared her testimony recently at an event for the youth there. A testimony for Christians is how you became a Christian. It's that story. For some people, it's that they grew up a Christian. For other people, something happens in
Hmm.
later in life. And she shared the story about how when she was 11 years old, she lost one of her best friends called Rosie from ovarian cancer. And then, as if that wasn't enough, her first boyfriend, Dylan, at 17 years old, she wasn't going out with him at the time, but he had been her first boyfriend. He dropped dead on a soccer pitch, on a
Oh,
soccer field of a heart condition. So in a few short formative years, my daughter Madison had these things going on, this grief. And she had anxiety attacks and panic attacks and some counseling. And she shared it at this church. She said, I wasn't going to share it, Dad, with my testimony, but it's part of who I am. And you know what, Bonnie? Quite a few people came up to her afterwards and said, I'm really glad you shared that. Can I talk to you about my situation?
hmm.
And I really want to ask your advice on this. And can I open up with you on this? Because I've not been able to talk to people about it. And to your point earlier, if she a lot of people in the audience found somebody like them or
Yeah.
somebody they could identify with like them, and at a certain personal cost, because you're giving away something of yourself, you're bringing so many other people in,
Yeah.
and that's brave, isn't it? That takes some courage.
Oh, it takes huge courage. And, because you don't know how people are going to react, but I generally find that the pros of that and the connections you make by making yourself vulnerable and maybe sharing things that you're not super proud of all the time, the pros on that are much bigger than the cons.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've have we put the world to rights? Have we sorted every single problem in the accounting world?
We have not, but I do want to close with a couple of fun questions for you. When you were 5 years old or around that age, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a teacher. And I did. I was a high school math teacher for 8 years. I did four in the UK and four in Hong Kong because I actually loved school.
Hmm.
So even
I
at
did too.
five, as much as I hated leaving home, I really got into school. I wasn't an academic, but I loved a certain structure about it. I was bright enough to do okay in classes, but I enjoyed it. I loved my sports. I loved the variety of the different topics. And I thought being a school teacher must be cool. And I did. I qualified. I did a 4 year degree and I enjoyed teaching math and physical education until it got to the point where I was coaching kids to pass tests.
Yeah.
Then the magic wore off and I looked at another career. But yeah, being a teacher, it's a noble profession. It's very honorable. My other daughter, Georgia, she's a kindergarten, primary school teacher now. She teaches 6, 7 years old, and it's a great game to be in. Maybe not for 30, 40 years as it's painted as a career for life, but what is a career for life these days? These
Yeah.
young people have many different careers, don't they? But Yeah, teaching. What about you at 5? What were you going to be?
I wanted to build houses.
Wow, that's so radical.
Well, and you have to understand, I was sort of traditional gender roles. I was like my father's son.
Right, that
Um,
explains a lot. All
I was
right.
very much the tomboy, and we literally, my dad and grandfather and, others helping out built the house that I grew up in.
Mm,
And I was helping. I had a little red wagon that I would drag around that had tools in it and
amazing.
bricks and all of that. And that was just so much fun to me that, yeah, I wanted to build houses.
That makes complete sense. I would have
Yep.
had that too. Yeah. Good. So that's me at 5. What else?
All right, two more. If you were given that you travel a lot, so if you're given the chance to travel anywhere that you want for free, you don't have to worry about time off or anything like that. Where are you going?
I don't travel a lot now, but I have traveled a lot. Like I said, I lived in Hong Kong. I've been to almost all of the US states and Canada, where, there are very few places left on my bucket list. Maybe the Caribbean,
Mm.
maybe Japan, because I've heard it's just such a culture shock. You walk down the streets in Tokyo and they are so far ahead of the game in their technology and everything else. So, but I'm at that season in my life where home sweet home. There's a lot going on within 50 miles of where you live if you really want to look for it. So, yeah, I've done my traveling. I really had an itch to travel when I was younger. And the UK is small. You can hit the coast wherever you are in 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
But in Texas, for instance, you can drive for 10 hours and still be in Texas. So it's a big place over there. What about you? Anywhere left on your bucket list to visit?
Oh, I have tons of places left on
Oh,
my
really?
bucket list.
Okay.
Yeah, and Japan is one of them for sure. I have spent a decent amount of time in the Caribbean, and Aruba is like my happy place.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I want to get to Africa. I want to get to other parts of Asia than Japan. A lot of Europe I haven't yet explored. But
New Zealand, I've heard, is fabulous, where they
uh,
filmed Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and wow, that
sounds
magical.
pretty cool. Finally, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I was asked the question recently, if you could speak every language in the world and talk to anybody, or you could speak to animals, which would you choose? And I thought that's such a good question. I'd actually probably get more sense out of animals than talking to everybody, but that would be a cool superpower. I've always admired linguists, the people that can embrace 6, 7, 8 different languages, even a couple. We're
Yeah.
very complacent here in England because everyone speaks English and we don't make an effort. So if you could call it a superpower, I would love to be more confident and competent with languages so that I could speak to anybody.
I love that. But I also want to be able to, I don't necessarily want to talk to animals as much as I want them to be able to understand them when they're talking to me.
Yeah, or know
Um,
what they're thinking, right? Wouldn't
right.
that be cool? Although if it's a dog, it's probably food, scratch, walk,
Yep.
poo. It's
Yep.
it might be quite basic. They've got small brains, but that ability to know what an animal is thinking, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Wow.
Well, thank you as always. I so enjoy conversations with you and really appreciate you taking the time today. And hopefully we'll be able to do this again soon.
It's been a blessing, and hopefully in our ramblings and our rants and our passions, we've given some value to the watchers and the listeners. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams, the Center for Accounting Transformation and CPA Trendlines. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website at accountingmoveproject.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues too. I'm your host, Bonnie Buol Ruszczyk, and until next time, keep moving forward.